He's made it clear throughout his life that he believes black people are inferior. Like he believes that to his core, in his bones. He wouldn't let us live in his buildings back in the day. But also, when you hear some of the stray comments he makes, he clearly believes in a genetic hierarchy of humanity and is racially determined. So he is a tried and true, like dyed-in-the-wool racist.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about longtime Trump derangement syndrome sufferer John Legend saying that President Trump is a racist, stone cold, stomp down racist, and he's been like that since the 1970s on up until right now, 2024. Now, in case you don't know who John Legend is, he is a singer, been around for a very long time, and he is married to fellow TDS sufferer Chrissy Teigen, who was a whole nutcase and a different story. So for now, I digress. Now, John Legend was on MS-13 DNC talking about justice reform and a thing called pretrial freedom. Basically, zero bail. Hey, Mr. Suspected person who deleted 18 people. We know you got caught in the act. We know there's a criminal history behind you, but check it out, because you're poor and you can't afford the bail. Maybe there shouldn't be any bail. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but maybe I'm not. So he was there talking about that and trying to fix some of the wrongs that have been done in the justice system, which would be a thing you would try to criticize Joe Biden for, not Donald Trump, because isn't Trump the one who freed a lot of guys that were doing football numbers, 25, 35, 45 over a dime bag of crack cocaine or something like that? Isn't he the one that did that? And that's your man, Joe Biden, who you wanted to vote for? Now, there's a lot that was said in this interview, but before I go any further, let's go ahead and get into the actual clip. Of course, I will link to the whole thing in the box if you want to see it, but without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
You've been working on this for years now. You're not new to this issue. Why is there such a disconnect out there about this issue?
Well, the reason why we care so much about pretrial freedom is because our jails end up housing so many people, and they're not set up to make people's lives better. And
now, one thing about jail, they probably shouldn't be there to make your life better, okay? Because if you're in jail and you have no bail or a very high bail, there's probably a reason, like, I don't know, a track record, maybe some evidence that points toward the fact that you probably did do it. Now, I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but again, if you then deleted 18 people and you get caught with a murder weapon, okay, maybe at a certain point, you probably shouldn't be let out before your trial.
And what ends up happening is people who are innocent until they're proven guilty. So in our system, everybody knows that. You watch Law and Order, you watch the life and times of Donald Trump, every trial that he's a part of. You notice he's not spending time in jail before he goes to trial. He's in.
Now, the thing about Trump is that I've not ever heard of Trump being accused of a violent crime. If you got some kind of criminal, like some kind of money crime, tax, traffic, something that's not violent, and you don't have a track record at all, no criminal history, then that's one thing. But a lot of people who are being released before their trial have violent track records, and they're accused of violent crimes.
Innocent until he's proven guilty. And we all know that. But what happens with folks who can't afford bail is they have to languish in jail until their case. I think what ends up happening is we get kind of ruled by the anecdote. You know, the New York Post will run a story, or Fox News will run a story, or the local news will run a story, and they'll say this one person got out of jail on bail, and they did this crime. But
now let's pause, and pardon the pauses because it's MSNBC. They might want to give me copyright on this, so I got to pause every now and again to avoid the copyright. But you're trying to talk about anecdotes. These stories can be seen every day. A brand new story every single day. I could tell you probably at least two off the top of my head right now. One guy was in New York City, violent crime. He was accused of slashing somebody on the subway. He is released, no bail, and then he goes to Philadelphia and stabs a baby, a 1-year-old baby. Okay, 12 months old, barely walking, probably not talking nothing yet. Probably still in a diaper, the whole 9 yards, all right? And then there's a case of the migrants who stomped out police officers in Times Square on camera with witnesses everywhere. They were given bail, and then they fled to Arizona, and they're part of a nationwide manhunt to extradite them back to New York City. That kind of story can be seen over and over and over and over again, just in New York, let alone other parts of the USA where the same thing goes on. But I digress. I'm getting triggered.
But the actual numbers, the actual data is resoundingly clear that folks that benefit from pretrial freedom don't go out and commit more crimes.
We just showed a clip of part of the gathering. You hosted at your own home.
We hosted at our house. We worked with a group called Zealous that kind of gathered these folks from all around the country. And we had a gathering at my house. And we wanted to really humanize the really positive effects of pretrial freedom and make sure people really understood the stories that were attached to that and the lives that were attached to that and the families that were attached to that.
And by the way, where's your wife at? Because normally when I see John Legend, I see Chrissy Teigen. I think she might have got canceled because of some things that she did. So she's kind of like out of the public eye. And he's not mentioning her at all by name. It's pretty interesting.
And so we had people come to my house and we talked about it.
And one of the things that you hear from Trump's supporters is that he signed the First Step Act in 2018. He's a partner in this effort. What do you say to people who say, "Oh no, he would be an ally. Look what he did in 2018."
If you are being honest, he is an ally. If you're talking about justice reform, he'd be an ally. But because you got this gang banging stuff going on, red versus blue, whatever, in the mind of John Legend, and Trump is the enemy, it doesn't matter. Trump could literally give him whatever he was requesting when it comes to this issue, but he would still be considered the enemy in the eyes of John Legend.
He's not been an ally. I mean, I think the First Step Act was fine. It was a very
stuttering because he knows that it's a good thing. I've seen plenty of interviews with people, random people, not political channels. I'm talking about on jail channels where guys said, yeah, I was freed from the First Step Act, and then I've been out here doing my own thing. I got my own business. I'm doing well in my life. He should be in support of what Donald Trump has done. But this just goes to show it doesn't matter what you do for some people. They will refuse to ally with you because they see you as the enemy, and that's all it's ever going to be.
Kind of small reform. And to be honest, most of the reform we need is on the local and state level because most incarceration is local and state, and most of the laws that end up being criminally.
But what Trump can do is affect the federal. Trump cannot go into each state and tell them what to do. He can affect the federal thing. So he did what he could do. So give him his credit rather than trying to be a hater.
Enforced our local and state laws. That being said, at the same time, he's claiming credit for those small things. He's also saying, if people are stealing something, they should get shot in the middle of the store. When we protested the killing of George Floyd, he was advocating for the military to shoot us in the streets.
Now you're talking about George Floyd. A lot of those protests wound up being violent. People died as a result. Neighborhoods got burned down. That's a tad bit different than somebody possessing a dime bag of cocaine and getting 25 with the L because your guy, Joe Biden, put him in the penitentiary to make big rocks to little rocks. There's a big difference. If you can't see it, you're just being dishonest.
He's made it clear throughout his life that he believes black people are inferior. Like he believes that to his core, in his bones. He wouldn't let us live in his buildings back in the day. But also, when you hear some of the stray comments he makes, he clearly believes in a genetic hierarchy of humanity and is racially determined.
This is so bogus because Trump was never seen as a racist until 2015 when he came down the escalator with Melania to run for president as a Republican. Before that, he was an honorary member of the black community. He was hanging out with so many black folks from the old generation to the new generation, from Muhammad Ali to Snoop Dogg, from Rosa Parks to Jennifer Hudson. And by the way, Jennifer Hudson had a family tragedy and Trump allowed her to stay in a Trump hotel. Hey, you got it. It's no problem. Whatever you need, it's on me. Trump always looked out for the black community. He was beloved by the black community, so much so that if you were a racist white person, you would say it's just too much. But all of a sudden, now he's a racist. Since when?
So he is a tried and true, like, dyed in the wool racist. Like, in the core of his being, he's a racist.
So that's what he thinks. He thinks that Trump is a racist. I mean, we've seen the pictures at the beginning. Shout out to Right Wing Angel Oliver Mack for doing that montage right there. We know a lot of the stories, but here's one story you might not have heard yet. This is from Judge Joe Brown. Okay, now I don't think anybody's going to sit here and say that Judge Joe Brown is a racist or is not black and doesn't know what he's talking about. This is an example of Trump not being a racist, the kind of thing that he was very well known for throughout his entire life in the public eye. Check it out.
What is your take on Trump? Is Trump a racist?
I don't think so. I've talked to a number of black entrepreneurs who back in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s, were trying to get financing. They couldn't. Somebody told them to go check with Donald Trump. So they come back and tell me they got a loan from Donald Trump.
Pause for the fair use. Shout out to the creator. Shout out to Judge Joe Brown. And my main man, I think it's Curtis Coon. Shout out to them for the content.
He gave him a term loan. Show up with the interest and the principal, one check. But they had to go see him personally. They independently relate this tale that when they saw him, he said, "This what you supposed to pay me? This our agreement?" I said, "Yeah." And then tore the check up, shook their hands, and congratulations. Now run your business.
And this was when?
This was back in the 90s. See, most people don't even know this. He had a sister. He was, every time you saw him back in the 90s, fine paper bag, brown, beautiful black model. He likes fine women. He didn't have any problem with dating a black woman, walking her down red carpets. So, I mean, she says he's not a racist. He just doesn't like many people, black or white. And he appreciates people who do stuff within their lane. Well, not stay in their lane, but where they choose to be. If they do it well, he admires them. Black, white, brown, red, yellow.
So there's more to that, but I'll leave it right there. So Trump's a racist since when? First Step Act has done more for justice reform than anything Biden has ever done. But John Legend says he's going to vote for Biden in 2024 this year. You can't make it up. Now, as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to Trump for not being a racist. Shout out to everybody who says that he's a racist with no evidence. Look, I don't mind somebody saying something about Trump. It's fine. Whatever you want to say about anybody, that's cool. But I think that if you say something about somebody, you should be able to prove it rather than just making accusations. Okay, you feel that way? At least be able to prove it rather than just bumping the gums. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on what John Legend was saying about pretrial freedom, about Donald Trump being a racist? And how about what Judge Joe Brown said? Who do you believe between the two, from John Legend and Judge Joe Brown? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. Trump was never a racist. He was always seen as friendly to the black community, an honorary black person. It was only in 2015 when he ran for president as a Republican was he seen as a racist, because that was a strategic thing done by the media to paint him that way, to turn people against him because he was not their guy. He could not be controlled by them. That's all that it was. It wasn't about anything else other than that. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.